In the days of the American frontier, legends were forged in dust and gunpowder. Outlaws and lawmen walked the same wooden boardwalks. Saloons echoed with music and tension, and the open prairie stretched into hostile, untamed lands. Here, sharpshooters earned their names, towns rose from nothing, and the line between hero and villain blurred with the setting sun. At Academy of Shorts, we bring these faces of the Old West back to life, using AI to animate rare photographs and portraits so you can meet the gunslingers, the trailblazers, and the infamous outlaws as if they just stepped out of history. Annie Oakley, born Phoebe Ann Moses in 1860, wasn't just a sharpshooter, she was a legend in her own time. Standing barely 5 feet tall, she could split a playing card edge-on at 30 paces, a skill that stunned audiences across America and Europe. Traveling with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, Annie turned marksmanship into art, captivating crowds with her charm as much as her aim. She defied the expectations of her era, a woman who stepped into a man's world and became one of the Old West's most enduring icons. By selling the game to local hotels and restaurants, she paid off her family's mortgage before she turned 15. Black Bart, born Charles E. Bowles, wasn't your typical outlaw. A gentleman bandit of the Old West, he became infamous for robbing stagecoaches without ever firing a shot. Always polite and often leaving behind rhyming notes signed Black Bart the Poet, he baffled lawmen and captured the public's imagination. But behind the bowler hat and sharp eyes was a man shaped by war, loss, and years on the run. One interesting fact about Black Bart was that he was nearly at his 50s when he began his robbing. After his release from prison, he vanished without a trace, his fate still a mystery of the Old West. Butch Cassidy, born Robert Leroy Parker in 1866, wasn't the hardened outlaw from the start. Raised in a Mormon farming family in Utah, he learned to ride and rope before he could shave. By his early 20s, he'd traded fence posts for 6 shooters, forming the Wild Bunch Gang. They became the most successful train and bank robbers in the American West, always one step ahead of the law. Butch was charming, cunning, and known for his wry smile, the kind of man who could rob you and make you feel like you just made a new friend. His fate remains a mystery, with legends claiming he met his end in Bolivia, and others insisting he lived out his days quietly under a different name. They called her Calamity Jane, a name as wild as the frontier she roamed. Born Martha Jane Cannery, she claimed to have scouted for the U.S. Army, rode with Wild Bill Hickok, and faced down outlaws and danger with a fearless heart. But Jane was more than just a gun-slinging legend. She nursed the sick during smallpox outbreaks, dressed in buckskins, drank hard, and spun tales that blurred the line between truth and myth. Was she truly the daring scout she said she was, or just a master of her own legend? History leaves us guessing, but her name still rides the wind of the Old West. They called him Wild Bill, a lawman, a gambler, and a gunslinger whose very name could make outlaws think twice. Born James Butler Hickok in 1837, he carved his legend on the American frontier. A Union scout during the Civil War, a U.S. Marshal, and a man deadly with a Colt revolver, Wild Bill was as quick with his wit as he was with his draw. He patrolled the lawless streets of Abilene, Kansas, faced down desperados in dusty saloons, and lived by his own unshakable code. But fate caught up to him in Deadwood, Dakota Territory, when a single bullet ended his life, and the poker hand he held, aces and eights, became known forever as the dead man's hand. Out on the edge of the frontier rode a man named Pawnee Bill, a figure larger than life, forged in the dust and danger of the Old West. Born Gordon William Lilly, he earned his name riding with the Pawnee Nation, speaking their tongue, earning their trust. But it was the show ring where he carved his legend, rifles cracking, horses thundering, the Wild West brought to life before the eyes of 1,000 towns. He wasn't just a cowboy. He was a storyteller, a businessman, and a bridge between worlds. Pawnee Bill knew that the frontier's glory was fading, but he made sure its spirit would never die. Sam Bass rode straight into legend with a smile as quick as his draw. He wasn't the fastest gun in the West, but he had a gambler's charm and a bandit's nerve. Known as the outlaw who pulled off the Union Pacific's biggest train robbery, Bass became a folk hero to some and a thorn in the side of the law. His life was a short blaze of daring heists, dusty trails, and narrow escapes, until fate caught up with him in Round Rock, Texas. Sam Bass, the smiling bandit who lived fast and died with his boots on. And though the law claimed his body, the legend of Sam Bass belonged to the people, and to a sister who refused to let him be forgotten. In the untamed West, where outlaws ruled and justice was scarce, one man stood taller than legend, Bass Reeves. Born into slavery, Reeves escaped and rose to become one of the first black U.S. deputy marshals west of the Mississippi. He rode the frontier with fearless resolve, said to have arrested over 3,000 outlaws, often venturing alone into hostile territory. His skill with a revolver was unmatched, his sense of justice unwavering. Some even believe his exploits inspired the tale of the Lone Ranger. Bass Reeves wasn't just a lawman. He was a mystery, a force of order in a world of chaos, and his shadow still rides through history. They called her the Bandit Queen. Belle Starr, born Myra Maybelle Shirley, she grew up in the chaos of the Civil War, where outlaws were made and legends were born. With a pistol at her side and a reputation that rode ahead of her, Belle was feared and admired in equal measure. She ran with Jesse James, the younger gang, and was never far from the gunsmoke of trouble. Accused of horse theft, outlaw dealings, and harboring fugitives, she lived a life balanced between charm and danger. But her story ended in mystery. Shot in the back on a lonely road, her killer never found. Belle Starr wasn't just an outlaw. She was a symbol of rebellion, a woman who carved her name into the lawless heart of the Old West. Even in death, Belle Starr remains an enigma, a woman who defied her time and carved her name into the lawless heart of the Old West. Wyatt Earp was born in 1848 in Monmouth, Illinois. He became one of the most famous and debated figures of the American West. Earp lived many lives: lawman, gambler, saloon keeper, and gunslinger. He worked the roughest frontier towns from Dodge City to Tombstone. In 1881, alongside his brothers and Doc Holliday, Earp took part in the gunfight at the OK Corral, a 30-second clash that defined his legend. Some saw him as a fearless defender of law and order. Others called him a ruthless opportunist who blurred the line between justice and outlaw. After Tombstone, he hunted his brother's killers in a bloody vendetta, then drifted into mining, gambling, and business ventures across the West. He was born William Frederick Cody, but the world knew him as Buffalo Bill, scout, soldier, showman. His life blurred the line between history and legend. On the frontier, he earned his name hunting buffalo to feed the railroad crews. In battle, he rode with the cavalry against the fiercest warriors of the plains. But it was on the stage that he became immortal. His Wild West show carried the spirit of the frontier across oceans, dazzling kings and queens with galloping horses, crack shots, and painted stories of the untamed West. Was he a hero or a master of myth-making? Perhaps both. In Buffalo Bill, the man and the legend became one, and America's Wild West was born. Her name was Olive Oatman, a pioneer girl whose face became a symbol of the frontier's darkest tales. In 1851, her family was attacked on the lonely Arizona Trail. She was just 14 when she was taken captive, first by the Yavapai, then traded to the Mojave. Years passed. She lived among them, worked, and bore the indelible mark of their people, a blue tattoo etched into her chin. When she was finally returned to white society, she was no longer the girl who had left. Some called her rescued. Others whispered she was haunted, divided between two worlds. Was she a survivor, or forever a stranger to both? Olive Oatman's story is not just history. It is a mystery carved into the very skin of the American West. His name was Henry McCarty, though the world remembers him as Billy the Kid. Born in obscurity, he carved his place in history with a pistol in his hand and lawmen at his back. Some said he killed 21 men, one for every year of his short life. Others whispered the truth was far less, but legends are built on whispers. Billy was no ordinary outlaw. Quick with a gun, quicker with a smile, he was part desperado, part folk hero, a boy who became a ghost before he ever grew into a man. Even now, in the dust of the Old West, his name lingers. Billy the Kid, the boy who could not be caught and would never be forgotten. Some called him a gambler, others a killer. But to history, he is Doc Holliday, a man as sharp as his cards and twice as deadly with a pistol. Born John Henry Holliday, a Southern gentleman turned gunslinger, his name rode on whispers through smoky saloons and across the dusty streets of the frontier. Friend to Wyatt Earp, foe to countless men who never lived to tell the tale. Doc walked the thin line between life and death, a cough in his chest and a Colt on his hip. Calm eyes, steady hands, and a reputation forged in fire and lead. This is not just a photograph. This is the face of the West's most dangerous friend and its deadliest enemy. He was not a man of wealth nor of title, yet his name echoes across the centuries. Sitting Bull, a Lakota leader, a warrior, a visionary. His strength was not only in battle but in spirit, unyielding, mysterious, unbroken. He carried the weight of his people with the silence of stone and the wisdom of the plains. His eyes had seen hardship, his voice carried truth, and his presence alone commanded respect. To his enemies he was defiance, to his people he was hope. And to history, he remains an enigma, a man who stood against the tide of a nation and whispered to the winds of eternity, "We shall endure." Sitting Bull, the warrior who never bowed and never will. In the shadows of the American frontier, a name was whispered with equal parts fear and fascination. Jesse James, outlaw, legend, ghost of the West. Some called him a hero of the people, others a cold-blooded thief, but all agreed he was untouchable. He rode through history with steel in his eyes and fire in his heart, a revolver at his side and a price on his head. Betrayal, blood, and brotherhood carved his path, and even in death, his story refused to die. Was Jesse James a man of vengeance, a rebel against the rising tide, or a myth shaped by the fear of those who crossed his gaze? One thing is certain, the legend lives, and Jesse James is still watching. The Wild West may be gone, but its legends remain. The guns fell silent, the towns grew quiet, and many of these outlaws, lawmen, and pioneers passed into history. But their stories of courage, greed, betrayal, and survival still echo across the American frontier. If you've enjoyed this journey into the past, consider supporting the channel for more stories just like this, where history is brought back to life. Thank you for riding with us through the old trails of the West. And until next time, keep the spirit of history alive.